Good morning, everyone. I'm Brent Cromer, and this is the FSA podcast where we teach online health coaches how to sell at a higher rate and scale their businesses with more profit. Now, I heard a quote the other day. I don't love it. You guys have probably heard it if you're in sales. It's one that tends to float around a lot, to be honest with you. So it's every no gets you closer to a yes. Every no gets you closer to a yes. So I heard this and I sat on it and I thought about it and I'm like, what does that actually mean? Like, what does every no get you closer to a yes? Well, what does that actually mean? Well, it's been used probably for the last 40, 50 years. It's something that I think a lot of salespeople have used for a long time. And I think what they mean by every no gets you closer to a yes is that you're going to encounter a lot of no's and that it's a numbers game, right? And for the last 40, 50 years, for a lot of people, it has been, it still is. So the numbers game is basically, if let's say we book 100 calls, 50 of them show, we pitch to all 50 because we run by the mantra that every no gets you closer to a yes. So if we can just pitch to everybody, we can get as many yeses as possible. So we pitched to all 50 people that showed and we closed 10, right? That's a 20% close rate. So therefore, if we want to close 20 calls, if we want to, scale our business, then we have to book 200. That's the reverse engineering that goes into it. So if we book 100 calls and close 10, let's not focus on closing more than 10, right? Let's focus on booking double so that we can close double. But in reality, you're just creating this very, very inefficient monster of a business. So I'll walk you guys through why I don't subscribe to that model, but I do see it all the time. And I think the dial, the dial that people choose to turn is the lead gen, the call bookings, as opposed to just getting a little bit better at sales, right? More calls equals more money. But again, people fail to appreciate that you really should be closing 30 to 40% of all calls that are booked on your calendar. So we call that the book to close ratio. The book to close ratio suggests that if you book 100 calls, you should probably close 30 to 40% of them as clients. And what that is that's actually factoring in your show rate. So that's assuming that you have a good show rate and a good close rate. So to have a book to close ratio of 30%, let's keep it easier. If you have 10 calls, 3 to 4 of them should become clients. Okay. That's factoring in if 2 didn't show and you only pitched to, 5 of them, then 3 to 4 should become clients. Okay. So 30 to 40% of call bookings should become clients. In the previous model, where you're booking 100 calls and 10 become clients, that's a 10% book to close ratio. So that would suggest that you're not a very efficient business, or your client acquisition funnel is not as efficient as it could be. So that factors in a few different things. That factors in your marketing, your show rate, your close rate, all of the things. And again, to have all of those in good working order, you should be at 30 to 40%. Some people as high as 50 to 60%, just depending on your lead volume. Okay, so now that I've thrown a bunch of numbers at you, and here I am saying that sales isn't a numbers game. It is a numbers game in many aspects, but not treating people like they're a numbers game. Okay. So again, the old mantra: pitch everyone, pump up the lead gen. Most will say no, some will say yes, and if depending on how many say yes, then we just turn the other dial on the lead gen, and then we hit our numbers. Okay. Now, that doesn't really work in the fitness market for 99% of coaches. Like I work with some coaches that they'll put out one CTA, they'll put out an ad, they'll put out a couple different things, and they'll get as many leads as they want. Too many leads, like so many leads that they're like, okay, you guys have to fill out this application where it spells out exactly the price, what we offer, and everything. And basically, you're saying, do not get on a call with me unless you're pre-sold and you've confirmed that the pricing model works for you. Okay. So some people, very few, are able to run a business like that. Okay. But for the mass majority, if you're listening to this and you're like, shoot, I got a couple thousand followers on Instagram, I put out a CTA and sometimes nobody says a thing. Well, then you're who I'm talking to be quite honest with you. Leads are hard to come by and they get more expensive by the year, especially if you're running ads. It seems like cost per lead just, it trends up. A couple of years ago, we could get leads for $2-3 a pop. You're booking calls for next to nothing. Now, again, not really the same vibe. I see a lot of people getting $5, $10, $15, $20 leads. Okay. So leads are getting more expensive. The every no gets you closer to a yes suggests that you're willing to burn through leads instead of nurturing them into a yes, right? So if you don't get a yes on the call, going by this mantra that every no gets you closer to a yes, it's suggesting that, hey, on to the next, on to the next, when in reality, the most of your sales should be coming from follow-ups, from pipeline management, from reaching back out to old leads, as opposed to constantly putting yourself. I made this mistake. Okay, let me just stop here. I made this mistake for the entire first year of C4F, where I was like, I just need to be in front of new people always to try to get new people to buy, new people buy. And that's not, it's not the case. Not the case at all. In fact, most of our client acquisition comes from people who we've been talking to for weeks, months, or even years, literally years. So reaching back out to people who are already familiar with you, familiar with your process, your content, how you do things, how you talk, how you interact with your group. And if you have like a new lead magnet or something, reach back out to people who already know, like, and trust you, at least in some degree. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep engaging in conversation, right? They would have blocked you or unsubscribed by at some point. So every no gets you closer to a yes. Don't love it. I'll show you guys my model at the end if you guys stick around. Again, if you guys find this helpful, I want you to just stop. What helps me out a lot is growing this podcast. So if you're listening on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I drop this every single week. Tons and tons of free business advice, sales content, word tracks, how to follow up with prospects, how to market and DM, all the different things. And I give it all away for free every single week. So if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, would mean the world to me. If you're on Spotify, hit the follow button. Again, it would mean equally the same. I appreciate you guys tuning in every single week. And again, if you find this helpful, let me know too. So treating people like numbers, it doesn't do you any favors. And I'm going to explain why too. Think about it like this. As a fitness coach, who are you competing with? Let's just break it down. Who are you competing with as a fitness coach? A lot. You're in a multi-billion-dollar industry. You are competing with everyone who wants to help people lose weight. You're not just competing with other online one-to-one fitness coaches. You know, you're not competing with your friend Sally, who's got 1,000 more followers than you. Okay. You're competing with local trainers at the gym down the road, all the gyms down the road. You're competing with all of them. You're competing with $5 apps on your phone with generic workouts. You're competing with big companies like Noom, Optivia, Weight Watchers, because they're taking up a lot of the ad space as well, just on a much more corporate and high level, right? You're competing with Peloton. You're competing with P90X, HelloFresh, anything that suggests that it can help people get healthy and lose weight and live a better lifestyle. Every single piece of marketing out there with massive budgets, much bigger than my budget or your budget, millions upon millions of dollars per month is what they're spending in advertising. You're competing with them in some capacity. You're competing with big pharma and weight loss medications. You're competing with the healthcare industry and weight loss surgeries. You're competing with teas and shakes, anything that can help people lose weight, feel better, look better. You're competing with them. And let me ask you this. Okay, so whatever you're doing, whether you're on the treadmill, you're going for a walk, maybe you're just between calls, how do you stand out? Because that has to be the question that you're asking yourself every single day. And if you're treating people like numbers, you do not have the luxury, okay? And I know luxury is kind of a loose term there. You don't have the luxury of just turning the lead gen dial, typically, right? You don't have that. So if somebody says no, you don't have the luxury of just putting another 500,000 into a new ad that costed you $1 million to film, right? Like many of those competitors above. So your one way to stand out is to be you, to be authentic, to not treat people like numbers, but to nurture and foster good relationships with people over a long period of time so that you could build referrals, re-signs, all the different things, continue following up with them until they actually realize that, you know, this is something that can't go on any longer, that they're ready to make a decision. Of course, it's going to be with you because you've been the person that actually shows that you care and ask great questions. Okay. So you should not treat people like numbers. You shouldn't treat your business or your sales process like it's a numbers game. You should treat it with, a different approach. You should think, how can I become more authentic? How can I build proper relationships with my audience, with my prospects, with the people that I get on calls with? Okay. So ditch the mantra that every no gets you closer to a yes, because in my opinion, that is only for the very, very elite, large companies that are able to do that. Okay. So here's how I want you guys to think of every time you get a no. And by the way, we have the push-pull process, the push-pull buying process. It works great. Most of our clients are closing at a base. I like to see 50%. Most are in 60, 70, and upwards of 80 and 90%. Okay. So None of the numbers I just mentioned are 100%. So you will get no's no matter how good you are. Some people get a lot less no's than others, but you will get no's nonetheless. Okay. So when you get a no, I want you to think of it as an opportunity to gather feedback. So just like objection handling, I tell people all the time, when you're objection handling, what's the first thing you do? You ask a question to understand the situation, because it's too expensive or I can't afford that right now. They're very different objections. They don't mean the same thing. Okay. It's too expensive might mean it's too expensive compared to that $5 app that I mentioned earlier, or it's too expensive in terms of what I was paid this week because it was a light commission check. It's too expensive can mean 100 million different things. Okay. Or I can't afford that right now. It's too expensive. We don't have that kind of money. That's more than I was expecting. All of those can mean 100% different things. Okay. So, as always, clarify, clarify, clarify. Okay. When you say it's too expensive, do you mean in terms of like what's in the bank, or more in terms of like what you're getting as far as like, the program? Okay. I like to ask binary questions. This isn't a podcast on objection handling. If you want a podcast on objection handling, I've already created one. Go back through. I don't remember exactly what episode it is, but I'm sure it's easy to find with the title. So, okay. So understand, this is an opportunity to understand the why behind the no. Okay. So once we understand the why, we can better understand our clients and their needs and concerns. So then you can start to ask yourself, okay, write these questions down. When you get a no, and if you're serious, by the way, if you're not serious, you're probably not going to write any of this down. You don't super care. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But if you are serious about improving your closing rate, you haven't hired us yet, you don't want to hire us, you want the free advice, here it is. Okay. Ask yourself, is there something about that conversation that I can pre-handle next time in my marketing? Okay. She said it was way more expensive than she thought. Okay. Maybe there's something in my marketing process that's not giving off the impression that this is a higher ticket program in our, in a one-to-one capacity. So maybe I can shift that upstream in the marketing. Maybe I can do a client case study and testimonial and talk about the money a little bit without giving the exact price, but to let them know that there is a significant investment that they'll have to make. Okay. So is there something I can pre-handle in my marketing? Next question, is it a service that maybe I should consider adding if a lot of people are giving this as the reason for no? So let's say your program starts at 400 and most people are coming in, they're like, dude, I can't afford anything more than 250 to 300. You're like, ah, shucks, I don't have anything like that. Best of luck, right? Maybe it's worth creating a downsell option in that price range if you find that it's a consistent trend. Another question, did the client fully understand the coaching process, or were they just uninterested? Were they just trying to get us off the phone? Did they understand? Maybe there's like some learning gap. We've seen it pretty often where people just don't fully understand what it entails. Even though you've explained it, they don't understand it. So there's a difference. You can explain something, doesn't mean it was received. Did they receive the information appropriately? Did I do my part to facilitate, the conversation in the best way and ask thought-provoking questions? Questions that actually make them think, questions that other people probably haven't asked or refuse to ask because it makes them uncomfortable. Did I ask the hard questions? Or did I back out because it was a little weird for me, right? Or I was a little nervous, or I didn't want to ask that question. The final question that you should ask yourself, is there a pattern? Is there a pattern with these no's? Am I hearing something more consistent? Am I getting more no's than yeses? If that's the case, then I would reach out sooner than later, because there's a real good chance you're throwing away tens of thousands of dollars a month if you're closing at less than 50%. That's not acceptable. I don't care what anyone tells you in the fitness industry. But is there a pattern with the no's that you're getting? If there is, then it's worth looking into. So ask yourself, this series of questions. You'll adopt better strategies for the leads that are getting booked in. Okay. So think, how can I be better? And this is also going to help you once you understand the needs and the desires that your clients actually want. It's going to help you better retarget them too, because you're going to take better notes. And if it doesn't make sense now you have really detailed notes. So you can follow up in 3 months and it's like, hey, Shelly, I know you were really interested in getting some coaching, but X, Y, and Z, very specific X, Y, and Z came up last time. How are things going? Have you been able to find or land a new job? Or how's everything with the kids? Is everything okay? Everything getting better? Hey, I know it's summer. The kids are out of school. Are you finding that you have a little bit more time to spend with them and your fitness, or something like that, to where it's very specific? So the better you understand their situation, the more specific you can be in your follow-up. So again, think of every no as an opportunity to reevaluate your process and to patch the holes in your business. Okay. So that's all I've got for today's episode. Until next time is going to be post Christmas. This is my last one. It's December 18th. I'm going to push this out so you guys can have it by the end of the day. And then the next one will be sometime between Christmas and New Year's. So, guys, I wish you the very, very best. I hope you guys take some time off to enjoy with family and friends, and you guys don't hopefully go too crazy on New Year's. Okay, so everyone be safe, enjoy this time, and we will see you next time.